new here, I am Tabbie of Tabbie Talks, and we're going to get right into our podcast today. A couple things I want to talk about is I want to talk about the law of assumption, I'm going to talk about Gus, and I'm going to talk about self-mastery. And you'll hear a little bit about me as I go through this, but the first being the law of assumption. So it is not uncommon in today's world that we are always hearing about like the law of assumption, manifestation, things like that. And law of assumption and self-mastery are so intertwined. And I'm going to tell you why that is. So basically, what you have to understand is that the law of assumption really means whatever assumptions you make is the law, because it's the law of you. So whatever you're assuming to be true, you will find is true for you. That's why it's the law of assumption. Another way of saying it is whatever you assume to be true is true. So that is, I know that's kind of a shortened way of saying it, but that's the truth. And that's the foundation. So it's the law of you, the law of whatever you assume to be true. And with that, I also want to talk about self-mastery. And self-mastery is about your mindset, okay? So mindset is what is shaping everything around you, every single thing that you're experiencing. And I know it can be hard to really fully integrate this, because why our minds jump around so much during the day or throughout the night before going to sleep, especially for many of us overthinkers. And when you do not have control over your own mind, you are going to get a very chaotic experience in this life. You're going to have up and down emotions. You're going to experience extremely good days. You're going to experience extremely bad days. And the reason that is happening is because you are filtering the world through your beliefs about yourself, the people around you, your job. Everything is being shaped by you, which also goes right back to the law of you. Whatever you assume to be true is indeed true. Now, there is a delay, right? So you could be having the most wonderful day today and there's just nothing but crap around you, right? And then you might notice on a day that you're feeling kind of bad or kind of down that things are going really well, and you're like, okay, well, if it has to do with my mind, then how in the world is it that there's this roller coaster up and down? Well, you'll probably find that the way that circumstances happen around you sort of ride that same up and down roller coaster. But understand that it's the roller coaster is reflecting you. There is a delay. And for those of you, again, in the manifestation world, which I absolutely love, that's how I began my self-mastery journey and really focusing on my mindset, because the manifestation world it really opens up to the possibility of spiritual things. And considering that I find myself and have always identified myself as a spiritual person, the reason I really liked the idea of manifestation is because it sounded magical. And little did I know, or what I ended up finding out, was that it is magical, but also it all comes back to my mindset. And why? Because of Gus. And you may be asking, let me take a drink of water. Gus. God, universe, source. And I wish I could take credit for that. I really do. That actually came from the crazy Armenian guy from YouTube. And yes, that's really his name. And actually Arman is his name, but he always says, I'm a crazy Armenian guy. Gus, God, universe, source. You are Gus. Whether you know it or not, you are Gus. Now, I want to talk about a personal experience and about how this mindset is really self-mastery and how that actually translated one-to-one with my experience. So it would have been 11 months ago. I had a surgery coming up. And in anticipation of this surgery, I did all the things. Like I did research, I watched YouTube videos about what other people's experiences were. And I am a single mom. I did have some support in my life, but as most people, everybody has to work. So when the doctor that I was consulting with told me, your recovery could look anywhere from, it wouldn't be uncommon for you to have a recovery period of 3 to 6 weeks. I was like, oh, that's really not going to work for me. I mean, I've got a kid. How am I supposed to do this? Like, oh my God. And I remember just like having like this moment of like anxiety and thinking like, oh, what am I going to do if it really takes that long? And I started thinking about, okay, who could I call? What could I do? What kind of schedule could I work out? Would it be best if I could probably have this procedure like on a Friday and then have the weekend and, all of those things. And I will say the doctor said, by the end of the first 2 weeks, you should be feeling 100% yourself. And I was like, 2 weeks still sounds like a really freaking long time. Like, again, if I'm the primary person taking care of my kid, how is that going to happen? So anyways, I had that moment, I had that human kind of normal weighing the pros and cons. And what kind of happened was I just remember thinking like, no, that's not going to work for me. I'm going to have this procedure, but I also cannot afford to be down. And so again, I was watching these YouTube videos and I was consuming this content and I was doing all of this research just to hear about other people's experiences. And I will say that a lot of the videos that I had come across, people shared the same timeline that my doctor had given me. And trust and believe, this is not in place of medical advice or, do listen to your doctor, but also I am well versed enough with the woo-woo things of life that I have no problem for myself knowing that what I take on could be a risk. But to me, the reward is worth the risk. So I always make those judgments for myself, and I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing. But much like the law of assumption, self-mastery, believing in my mindset, and I'll tell you why, another reason that helped me believe this, was I was like, you know what? I need a rapid recovery protocol. Like, I cannot do whatever this is. And I remember right when that thought had come to me, I was kind of doing the same thing I'd already been doing, which is just looking at watching other videos about people's experiences. And I remember there was a person on the video that said, I actually feel way better than I thought, than I was told. And I was like, yeah, I like that. I want to be able to say that about my journey as I go along the way, right? And I decided that I just decided, I'm like, the word rapid recovery protocol just kept like playing in my mind. And so I just did a Google search. And would you happen to know, I found one article that was written by a doctor out of another state and had designed a rapid recovery protocol. Now, again, this was all me. I was fully confident. I knew the decisions I was making. I knew that it wasn't exactly in line with what my provider was telling me. However, it wasn't that far-fetched. It basically was just like, get up and move. Like, don't just sit there and, let your body dictate. Like, don't stay in, I'm so sick. Don't do that. It was like, from the moment that you can, and it had a protocol, get up and start moving. And so I was like, okay. And you know what? I didn't even talk to my doctor about it. Like, I already made up my mind. I decided that I was just going to go forward with this because, once again, everything that was recommended was what my doctor had recommended, only this one was a little bit more, this is the actionable steps. Like, you need to do this 2 hours after the procedure. You need to do this within 4 hours. You need to do this within 6 hours, yada, yada, yada. So I just was like, okay. And when I compared what my doctor was saying the same thing. It was just like, a little more gentle, a little more like, just take it as you can go and, let your body. And I will tell you the other thing. One of the things, even though I was bound, set, and determined to utilize this protocol, I also promised myself that I would listen to myself, that if it was too much, I wouldn't overdo it. I knew that I would be the decider as to whether or not this was going to work for me, but I will tell you that after I had the procedure, there was a moment, I had one moment come up where I'm like, oh my God, can I do this? And I said, you know what? You're doing it. And it was just about making a decision in the moment, despite the pain, deciding that if this worked for somebody, it could work for me too. And I ended up reconnecting with somebody that I hadn't talked to for over a year that had had the same procedure that I had. And I was 4 days post-op, okay? So 4 days past my surgery, and I talked to somebody. Actually, they came to my house, which was just funny and coincidental, and I didn't even know that about this person. And when I was talking with this person, they said, how has your week been? And I just said, well, on this day I did this, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, what? Are you kidding me? I had that done and I couldn't move for like 6 weeks. Like, are you serious? Like, you're talking about 4 days ago? And I'm like, yeah. And I was, because I had literally decided what was true for me. And I bet you, if you can look back, I bet you there was a time in your life where you probably decided what was true for you, and it was. And to other people, that might have seemed like a miracle, or like, holy crap, are you serious? Like, that was not my experience at all. So please, in this moment, if you are watching on YouTube or watching the live on TikTok, comment and tell me something about where you decided what was and what wasn't true for you, and you literally had it. And why? Because you may not even been aware of, you don't even need to be aware of things like the law of assumption, or the law of being, or the law of knowing, or manifestation. Because guys, this is actually just the way it works. This is how our reality works. This is how our lives are shaped. And back to also my story, I had like a 1 week post-op visit with my doctor. And, during that visit, I actually told him, like, I was like, this is what I did. And he was like, amazing. He's like, that is wonderful. And he's like, and that's really what I encourage people to do. He goes, but I understand for some, that's just a little too much to process. And he's like, but literally you did everything that you should have done. And you're doing amazing. And I felt amazing. And it was a great process. So for me, I just wanted to encourage you with a personal story about how important your mindset is. Now, one of the things that actually also helped me in this moment was, I remember like a couple years ago reading or watching or hearing something about a person who had a spinal cord injury. And they were like, it was a person, like an adult who had an accident, and they ended up having a spinal cord injury where the person was told, you're never going to walk again. And the person ended up writing a book, or maybe just even this article. Sorry, my mouth is just parched. But they ended up writing this, sharing their story, which was the only thing. Okay, the person was doing physical therapy, and basically it was just so that the muscles didn't atrophy. And for those of you who don't know, when something atrophies, it means it withers away, it dies. So like anybody who's been laid up in bed for a long period of time, they oftentimes will see a shrinking of their muscles because the muscle is atrophied because it's not being used. So this particular person has a spinal cord injury, right? Never gonna walk again. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember, it was they didn't have use from like chest down. So arms were still okay, but whatever it was, they were still doing physical therapy in order to try to not have muscle atrophy to the rest of the parts of the body that were immobilized. So the parts of the body that couldn't move, legs, things like that, this person was seeing this therapist, going to therapy, okay? And the person, every night before going to sleep, or whenever he had an opportunity, because he just refused to accept that this was the diagnosis, that this was true for him, he would envision his spinal cord in his mind. And I don't believe this person had a medical background, so it really doesn't matter how anatomically correct you are. All of us can imagine what a spine looks like. All of us have seen a skeleton, display outline. But this person would imagine his spinal column, and he would imagine that it was healing. Like he would literally go down his vertebrae and to not add anything magical or mystical. I remember that the article said something along the lines of he would imagine like a glowing healing light, and he would imagine that the vertebrae were straightening and that they were full of the disc fluid. So for those of you who don't know, you have little fluid pockets in between the discs of your body. Anyways, obviously where I'm going with this, because it supports my story, is the man ended up healing himself. The man ended up becoming a medical miracle, walking again, doing all of the things that they would have wanted to do. And the therapist, his doctors, everything, nobody had an explanation for it. And the thing that he could attest to was the fact that he refused to accept what was being told to him. He decided that he was going to, whether he knew it or not, he decided, I'm going to do this because I have nothing to lose. And he mastered his mind. And that story was somewhere in the back of my head. It's an amazing story. And we've all heard these stories, haven't we? We've all heard about the people who didn't accept the things that the hand that they were dealt. And they went on to live these very amazing lives. And, I'm here to encourage you that your own mind is the most powerful thing that you have. Everybody has it. And if you're struggling with like things of saying like, oh, it's so hard, like how do I not, how can I possibly look out at what's being given and not allow myself to get sucked down? Because you can. And that is part of it. When you are saying something is so hard, guess what? You're right. Let that sink in for a minute. You are right. So what are you saying? Is this hard? If you're saying yes, it is. And that is not to take away from the hardship or the pain or the struggle that you've had. It's just a matter of deciding, this may have been hard for me at one time, but it is no longer hard for me anymore. You can decide that from now on, this is easy. You can decide whether it has to do with your health, your wealth, your relationships, your parenting, your job. Sit with yourself. When you start to recognize that there is an emotion coming up inside of you, if it is bringing like negative feelings that are low, sadness, anger, depression, hopelessness, try to catch the thought. What was it that got you feeling that way? And if you follow me, you'll know that I talk about taking that thought, and if as soon as you recognize that it is off, that the emotion is negative, that is Gus's way of telling you that it's not true. So if something is scaring you, guess what? That's fear. That's low vibe. That means God is saying to you, or Gus, I love that, God, universe, source is saying to you, no, I see this differently. You have nothing to fear. Or if you're feeling angry or sad, then if that's an emotional discord between you and Gus, okay? I know that there's so many areas that I can take this to, and I really feel like this was enough information for today, but I want to challenge you. Think about the times in your life where you refused to quit, where you refused to give up, where you refused to allow what the outside was telling you to dictate what was true for you. And you can say this about, go, the actors, they're amazing. Obviously, we like them for what they do on screen. But oftentimes, if you go back and watch their interviews, listen to Oprah, Jim Carrey, Jennifer Aniston, Will Smith, Denzel Washington, and so many more. They're not the only ones. They tell you how they decided something was true for them, and it was. They didn't allow that small voice. The still small voice is Gus. The other small voice is the fear, the doubt, the worry, the anxiety. They did not let the people that were important to them, their grandparents, their parents, their friends, to tell them who they were. Because guess what? If they had listened, they would be a markedly different person person. And you will see that these people literally never stopped. They made the decision what was true for them, and then they executed it to perfection. And if you listen to my I'm going to share this on pretty much every one of my podcasts, because it's such a valuable tool. I don't need to charge for it, because that to me would be doing such a disservice. But it is so powerful, and it does transform your life one belief at a time. And I guess I should probably start calling this my rapid recovery protocol, because what I want you to do is, if you're struggling with something, health, wealth, body, children, relationships, whatever it is that you might be struggling with, number one, I want you to understand that you have a story, and it is based on the history, and I'm not taking that away from you. But if you are done telling that story and you decide this is not the story I want to be true for me anymore, this is what you can do. Get a piece of paper, write on the very top of the piece of paper, my old story about X, fill in the blank, yourself, your spouse, your children, your health, your wealth, your job, your whatever. Write that down, okay? And you're going to want to do this for just about any area of your life, because it will transform every single area. And I want you to dump out all the fear. I want you to dump out all of, even if it's true, I want you to dump it all out on a piece of paper, okay? And I want you to just let yourself be vulnerable. Tell the worst case scenario, because this place is safe, okay? And after you dump it all out, get it all out, my old belief about this, I want you to take a new sheet of paper, and I want you to write my new beliefs about this. And I want you to use that first piece of paper, and I want you to write an opposite statement. So if it is about your health, and you started it with saying, I am sick. On the second page, my new beliefs about my health, it's going to look like I am healthy. Okay? And for every single thing that you wrote down, I want you to go to the new page, the new story, and I want you to write down an opposite statement of the first page, okay? And after you write that opposite statement, this first page, your old story, I don't want you to ever look at it again, okay? I want you to tear it up, put it, you don't have to get rid of it. You could burn it. You could put it in a safe place, but it's not relevant anymore, because shifting from here to there is as simple as deciding that the new story is true for you. And when you're ready to drop this old story, that's when you see the change. And I don't want to tell you that manifestation is instantaneous or self-mastery is instantaneous. But I do want to tell you, it can be as easy as deciding. It can be as simple as telling a different story. It does not have to be any harder than what you decide that it is for you. Okay? So on your new page, my new story about X, whatever that is, I want you to read that piece of paper every single morning. Ideally, read it aloud, okay? Let your body hear it. Let every cell in your body hear it, okay? If you can do it right when you wake up, beautiful. Take a picture of it so that you can carry it around with you throughout the day. And when you have a break, go back to that paper, okay? And for the next 7 days, I want you to read every single thing on that paper. And I want you before you go to sleep at night, I want you to just take 1 or 2 or just whatever is coming up from that paper that you love the most. And I want you to go to sleep imagining a scenario that would make that true. So if, for example, you imagined health, I want you to, when you're going to sleep at night, you would imagine that a loved one, a family member, is coming up to you and saying, wow, you look incredible. And you would respond saying, oh my gosh, I feel so incredible. Isn't it wonderful? Like just something small. And if you could just replay this thought over and over and over and over and over in your head before you go to sleep, I'm telling you, you are going to wake up a new person. Because why? Because we go to bed stewing over the problems of the day, our stresses of the week, our stresses of the year, the stresses of our life. Oftentimes, we go to sleep in this replaying a loop. So if you want things to change, the only thing to change is self. Now, I want to thank you for joining me today. I want to remind you that I'm Tabbie. I'm your host from Tabbie Talks. This is the My Own Mind podcast. You can find the live video, or you can find I actually did this live on TikTok, so thank you to those who have been joining me. If anybody's sticking around, I'm going to answer some questions live here in a moment. But you can find this replay back on YouTube by going to Tabbie Talks. I also do have the audio version available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So I just want to thank you so much for joining me in this space today. I know somebody needed to hear this, and I know you're having a great day. So I want to be sure to tell you before I answer some questions, if there are any for me, make sure you keep shining your light because the world needs it. Thank you. Take care.